With Bike Walk North Carolina. Want to thank you very much for attending today. Want to welcome Julie White. Julie White is the North Carolina Department of Transportation's Deputy Secretary for the Multimodal Division. In this role, Julie oversees the rail, integrated mobility, aviation, and ferry divisions, including over 800 employees and $500 million in state and federal monies. We look forward to hearing what is ahead for the Bicycle and Pedestrian Division at NCDOT that is now integrated in the Multimodal Transportation Division. So I'll stop talking now and hand it over to Julie. Welcome, Julie.
Thanks, Terry. Can you hear me?
Yes.
Excellent. Good morning. It's so wonderful to see so much participation in the summit this year. DOT is a proud sponsor of the Bike Walk NC Summit, and we appreciate the partnership with the organization, and the content this year is just fabulous, as it is every year. So I'm honored to be able to have the opportunity to share with this important audience some updates from the DOT. And if you haven't had a chance yet to check out the videos, of our secretary being interviewed by Sig Hutchinson and his thoughts on biking and walking. And there's a link to it in the program. I would encourage you to go and check those out. I think they came out really well and provided our secretary an opportunity to share some of his experiences with biking and walking and what it means to him. So take the time to check that out. So 2020, you have to start every talk with, so 2020, you know, the year that changed everything. We had, all of us, much going on. And for my team at the DOT and throughout the DOT, we are incredibly proud of the really smooth transition our folks made to working from home for those of our folks that could work from home. I gave a talk yesterday to the Multimodal Committee of the Board of Transportation, and I called it While We Were Working from Home, because not only did our team do all of the normal day-to-day business that we do, we have also been doing some really exciting new things as well that I'm going to share with you today. And so I just always want to give a shout out to my team for that incredible work. For those that can't work from home on our team, like our ferry division, they are our frontline workers. They ensure that folks can get to work and to their tourist destinations throughout the coast every day. They have done a really wonderful job of moving passengers safely. So shout out to those frontline workers. We have the same with our group on the rail. And then of course, our partners that run buses. And we'll talk more about how we've been doing that. But one of the really great things I wanted to be sure and share was the work that what we're seeing in COVID that's happening outdoors. There is never been a more meaningful time to talk about public parks and trails than in COVID. This is some research that ITRI did for us, and they're continuing to do, on COVID impacts to trail use in North Carolina. And I'm sure it is the data that underlines the anecdotes that we are all seeing as we're out and about. So on your left is the blue line and Charlotte Trail and the pedestrian volumes. The blue lines are the historic usage numbers and the red lines are in COVID. So you could see just record volumes. Same over in Raleigh on the right at Shelley Lake, a trail that I frequent often. Again, you see record numbers. Shared public space has never been more important. And so the question is, how do we keep that conversation going? How do we use what we're learning about the importance of these spaces to continue to plan for our future? One of our really exciting initiatives is our Great Trails State Plan that we're working on. And I hope everyone had the opportunity to contribute to the survey that we had out and about all over the internet and social media so that we could gather lots of feedback. This is a vision of connecting all 100 counties through a network of trails and shared use paths. With a particular focus on connections between our population centers and our state parks. So we are working to develop a statewide trail map and an action-oriented plan for implementation. This has been led by our Integrated Mobility Division in coordination with the DOT's Transportation Planning Division and State Parks. So we are incredibly excited about this initiative and what it could lead to. There we go. And this is a draft of that network. So you can see how it will connect all 100 counties. We have a page on our website at the DOT dedicated to this, so you can go there and look more closely at it, zoom in, understand how it's connecting our existing as well as our potential new trails. So check it out on the DOT website. As I said, our modal responses to COVID have been top-notch, and we are incredibly grateful to all of our frontline workers across our passenger rail system, across the state's buses, and across our ferries. We are all doing enhanced cleanings at our stations, our stops, and on board. We're requiring masks and social distancing while on board those vehicles. We have adjusted our service to meet the demands in COVID. The most important thing we want to communicate to everyone is these are very safe options in COVID to use for transportation. I myself have ridden our passenger rail system in COVID from Raleigh to Charlotte, so I could get down there and see the construction of our Charlotte Gateway Station track project. I'm going out to ferry here shortly. I'm going to get on some buses as well. It is an incredibly safe option. Our folks are doing an excellent job keeping it safe. And so we ask anytime you can share that message, we would appreciate your assistance. And this is, I think, a really interesting slide. This is from some work at the UNC Gilling School that they did. And what you're looking at is the risk of infection on a bus, base case. And then if you do masking, how much you can reduce that risk. And if you do social distancing with reduced occupancy, how much you can reduce that risk. And then you improve your air quality through increased ventilation, how much you can reduce the risk. But if you layer all three, which is what we're doing, you see that you're reducing the risk by a factor of 10. And so we think that is really significant, important messaging to share with folks across the state. So we're sharing that with you today. We, again, encourage everyone to share with folks how important these measures are and how safe these options are. Our Integrated Mobility Division is really leading in COVID and supporting our transit systems through an initiative we're calling NC Transit Cares. This was something we started in January, and we were going to focus on innovations and long-term sustainability of public transit. But when COVID hit, what was clear is our transit systems needed more support in this space. So we tweaked it, and we started to focus in on how we could support our transit systems. We did a lot of surveys. We did virtual meetings with all 100 transit systems to gather what were the challenges they were seeing. How could they bring ideas of what else we could study forward and benefit them? And so what you see are 4 buckets that feedback fell into. First is keeping passengers and employees safe and healthy. Second, increasing and maintaining ridership levels. Third, restoring revenue and funding loss due to COVID-19. And fourth, looking at new service models as needs evolve. So now that we've identified what the big buckets are, we're looking at our innovations and solutions to these challenges, one of which is at the bottom of your screen there. We are actually submitting for a research grant in partnership with UNC and Johns Hopkins, the 2 countries' leading schools of public health, for a research demonstration grant to look at effective indoor air management. We think this can be a study that will become a nation leader in how we can improve that air quality management on those buses, because as we know, that's really important going forward. So that's just one of the outputs. We have one more meeting coming up later this month, and we're going to announce some other ways we're going to be addressing these 4 buckets of challenges our transit systems are facing. Another exciting initiative is in our rail division. This map is of the Southeast Corridor. It's how our rail systems get from the Northeast Corridor through Virginia, DC and Virginia, and then into the Southeast. This is really, North Carolina is the gateway into the whole Southeast rail network. And so what you're looking at in the northern part in the blue at Richmond, Petersburg is what's called the S line. It's owned by CSX. And Virginia announced a major deal they're calling Transforming Rail at the end of last year, where they are buying multiple rail lines from CSX, including this particular one, the S line. You can see on the map, the dotted part from Petersburg to Ridgeway is the part where the track has been removed. So they're purchasing the right of way. And then it comes into the North Carolina, over the border and into North Carolina. So North Carolina, we are in conversations with CSX to acquire the track, what is actually track, going from Ridgeway through the Triangle and down into South Carolina. We think that this could be a once in a generational opportunity to purchase a track that is underutilized and use it to really expand the rural urban connections in these parts of the state. We're also looking at purchasing what they call the SA line, which is the green dotted line or the right of way. There's no track in it, from Ridgeway to Weldon, again, to extend the reach of where we could potentially be running rail. And so what is exciting about this is its opportunity both to grow freight and to grow passenger rail through these opportunities. There is the mega site up in the northern part of the state near the S line there that is just waiting to grow. And we think having that rail freight access will help that. There is the Montcure mega site down by Sanford in Chatham County, right off the S line, that has an opportunity there. So we see a freight play here to grow manufacturing and jobs in those communities. And we see the passenger connections that could happen here. So we're really excited to share that we won a federal grant in the amount of $47.5 million to help us in purchasing that S-line right of way. So whenever you can bring federal competitive funds home to North Carolina to expand our opportunities, that's always a good thing. There's another grant we're pursuing related to this. This is the same S-line, it's just zoomed in a little. And the FTA, the Federal Transit Administration, has a transit-oriented development planning grant. We have submitted for that in partnership with the cities that you see listed on the slide. In fact, they kicked in a total of $370,000 to match that $1 million grant opportunity, so that if we win, and we should know by the end of the year, we can start doing transit-oriented development planning along the S-line. We want to be sure that these communities, particularly our smaller communities along the line, can get prepared to maximize this opportunity. Done well, rail in a vibrant downtown can create incredible amounts of economic opportunity, and we want to help communities make the most of this once-in-a-lifetime opportunity. I also wanted to share with you the existing and proposed trail connections to the S-line. We're spending a lot of time examining that. We probably have some more to add. We're just in the process of building this slide out. But we want to make sure this is a real multimodal play. We want to make sure we've thought about all of the connections to this system so that we can look at our land use and development patterns and say, how might we develop differently as to not develop around a car-centric model? So really just generational groundbreaking opportunity. So you've heard me mention a couple times the Integrated Mobility Division. We've spent the last year creating a new division at the DOT. We took the Public Transit Division and we took the Bike Ped Division, and then we took some new pieces as well, like autonomous shuttles and new mobility and scooters and whatever the next thing is that's going to come out. And we recognized that the world was changing and we needed to change with it and plan better for it. And so we created the Integrated Mobility Division so that we can provide leadership for safe, affordable, and innovative multimodal transportation throughout North Carolina. The division's new focus and vision is centered around these 6 areas of personal mobility, land use connections, innovations and pilots, integration, community vibrancy, and rural and urban needs. This is a high level view of our chart, and I share the 3 branches that we have created. One in planning and programming, one in finance and compliance, and one in safety, innovation, and data. And really, the safety, innovation, and data is a really new thing for us. So I'll talk a little more about that. In our planning and programming area, in the public transit side, you may be familiar, we have mobility development specialists. And on the bicycle side, we had bicycle pedestrian planners. And sitting in two different divisions, what really struck me when we came up with this idea was the fact that you would see in the state a bus stop on one side of a street. And I saw it myself, a mother get off with a toddler in a stroller, and there was no sidewalk. It was just getting off into the mud. And then across a 4-lane, 45-mile-an-hour road on the other side of the street, there was a sidewalk. And so she, of course, put that child in that stroller and then, ran across that road as fast as she could to get to that sidewalk. And that's because we weren't doing all we could to plan for those two things together. It's all about planning for the whole network. So we're bringing those two disparate parts into one, and our folks will now be multimodal planners, and they'll plan for the network together. We're dividing our state into Western and Eastern planning, so we'll have different sections, and then a third statewide for our statewide programs. So the safety and innovation data branch that I mentioned is going to be focused on transit, bike, and pedestrian safety, education, and training. They're focusing on innovative pilots. As these new mobility options come out, we want to test them, understand much more about how they work and how it interacts with our infrastructure. So I'll talk a little bit about some of those pilots. There is an enormous amount of data out there on this, so we need an entire unit dedicated to using that data to drive our decision making. And then we're doing a lot in the research study area. So one of those innovations that we are so excited about was a partnership we have done with the city of Wilson. Wilson is just shy of 50,000 people in population. They are the smallest city in North Carolina to run a fixed route transit system. Their bus system generally goes in their urban core, and it's about an hour-long headway to complete its loop. And they came to us and said, it doesn't really go where we need it to go. For example, a lot of our job centers are not in the urban core. As manufacturers, they're more on the outskirts of town. They said it isn't growing in ridership, and we'd like to look at doing a new way to do this. We'd like to see if we can serve more people in a different way. So they partnered with a rideshare program, a company called Via, and they now do on demand. So you go to your phone, you open their app, you tell it where you need to go, and it tells you where to walk, say within a block or two, to create a virtual bus stop so that they can aggregate riders and then take them where they need to go. There are options where you don't have to have a phone. There are places you can go to buy, put your money on a card that then you can use. You can call and schedule ride. And if you're not a mobile user, if you're not terribly mobile, you can put into your account and tell them you are designated to be picked up at your home. So the city of Wilson and Via have put a lot of thought into making sure that this service can meet all of the riders' needs. They have ADA vehicles, and again, that's in your account to indicate what kind of vehicle you need. So a very exciting opportunity. They've only been in place about 2 months now, and they're already seeing ridership numbers that exceeded their pre-COVID numbers. So they are serving more people than ever before with this new way of doing transit. And we think this is something very potentially duplicatable across, as you know, we have a lot of cities in this space of size across our state and across the country. So really excited to support them in this partnership. In fact, this is another place where we applied for a grant with Wilson, and they won $250,000. So they'll use that money to expand the times of day and the days of the week that they're offering the service. If you're interested in learning more, we have a webinar on this on our website you can check out. That is just a spectacular webinar. Another partnership we're doing is with our mobility, our transit partners in the Northeast. It's called Mobility for All. This was another grant we won, $280,000 to partner with those transit systems to look at an online scheduling platform to improve access to healthcare. Especially in COVID, we are all about how we can use technology to reduce the touch points in people's experience. So this is a pilot that will be launching shortly. And again, if this goes well, it's something we want to look at taking statewide. So I mentioned we had a webinar on our Wilson pilot. I want to encourage you, if you're interested in learning more about what we're doing, to check out our Multimodal Innovations webinar series. We're calling it Another Way to Get From Here to There. You can see on November 12th, we have one coming up on bicycle and pedestrian use in COVID. We're so excited to share with a broader audience about the explosion of use of bike and ped in COVID. We have one coming up in December on non-motorized vehicles, and then in January on the Charlotte Gateway Station experience. So check out our webinar series so we can share with lots of folks exciting things that we're seeing in the innovation space. Another one of our innovations in multimodal is our Cassie. She's our autonomous shuttle. We launched her at NC State pre-COVID, had a great experience there. And now we are getting ready, if all goes well, when she's tested, to launch her at the Wright Brothers National Memorial, which will be the first AV shuttle deployment at a U.S. National Park Service. And we love nothing more than firsts in North Carolina. So to put the first AV shuttle of the National Park Service at the Wright Brothers Memorial is just win, win, win. So she's going to go up there and get tested shortly, and assuming all the tech works for her up there, she'll be doing a deployment in April. And what's great about this, if you've ever been to the Wright Brothers, is from where you park to where you walk is quite a distance. And so we see the shuttle being able to take family pods so that we can keep them safe in COVID, that distance. It has an automatically deployable ADA wheelchair boarding ramp and automatic lockdowns inside. So she's going to provide great mobility for all kinds of users up there. You've heard me mention a lot of grants. We have been winning grants quite a bit. Since 2017, our modes have won $288 million in federal competitive grants. You can see across the bottom, across 3 of our 4 modes. We have gotten really good in this space, and we are super proud to be bringing extra dollars to these modes and doing more with them. One of those grants was $156 million in 2 grants for replacing our Piedmont locomotives and coaches. If you have ridden our trains between Raleigh and Charlotte, you know that we have done an incredible job building a program on pennies over the last couple decades. But those trains are the oldest in America. They are the oldest fleet in America. They go all the way back to 1950s cars that we have rehabbed and refurnished. But you can imagine parts will not be available forever on 1950s locomotives. So we won this federal money to replace that fleet. At the bottom of the screen, you see 2 potential examples. We haven't put it out to bid yet. So these are just 2 of the kinds of new locomotives that are out there. This is going to be a smoother ride. It's going to be a safer ride. It's going to have better indoor air quality management. So we are really excited to be bringing these new trains onto the scene. And I wanted to share with you our passenger ferry successful summer 2020 season. You can see that we did limited capacity for social distancing. We had a whole social media campaign around wearing masks. We did a lot of enhanced cleanings, and we had a great summer, moving about 7,300 folks and 574 bikes. We are incredibly proud to continue this program. This was our 2nd summer, and we only see it growing in the future. And I would be remiss if we talked about innovations and COVID and we didn't talk about our work in the drone space. We won the opportunity, only 10 in the country, to do the integrated pilot program with the FAA, which you probably heard. We did a lot of beyond line of sight and delivery package with drone over the last couple of years. And what is exciting is it went so well that the FAA has chosen to create a new program called Beyond, and they asked us to participate in that program. So we are going to be further growing how we can integrate drones, both into how we do our business at the DOT and into how we expand the opportunity here in North Carolina and the private marketplace. Hopefully you know about our MOBI Awards. This is a reflection, this is the 2nd year we did it, of where our nominees came from. And I can share with you our winning project this year. You will see greenways and trails and airports and transit. We are thrilled with how well this program is going. We love to highlight the multimodal investments that are being made in all size communities across North Carolina. We're going to be doing this program every other year. So if you can think of a new investment in the last 5 years that's been a great multimodal investment in your community, be sure and watch in 2021 for the opportunity, 2022, for the opportunity to submit that project for a MOBI. My contact information, if you need to reach me, is on the screen. And I think Richie told me he was going to put the questions into a chat. So I'm going to figure out how to find that. Here we go. We use Teams at the DOT, so I am trying to.
Hey, Richie, if you want to go online and ask.
Yeah, hi.
Hey,
Hi,
Richie.
Julie. We do have a few questions. Thanks.
Great.
Great presentation. And to anybody who asked, this presentation will be available after the fact. We have one question. Is there any update about reopening safe routes to school applications to projects in new areas of the state?
Great question. Yes, we are. That is in the works. We are working on that. So watch for that shortly.
Okay. Couple questions about rail developments in new areas of the state, Western North Carolina, and also expanded service in the Wilmington area.
Sorry, say that again.
We had some questions about whether there are any developments on passenger rail to either Western North Carolina or the Wilmington area.
Great question. So the S-Line project we see as not just a project, but a start of a program. There are underutilized rail corridors all across our state. Asheville and Wilmington areas would be great examples of that. So yes, we continue to look for where we have a willing Class 1 partner who has an interest in having a conversation about those lines, looking to match it up with funding opportunities. And yes, we think that this is a very big, bold future area of investment for the state.
Glad to hear it as an Asheville resident. We had many compliments to the new grants that NCDOT has secured for the state, and one question about whether NCDOT is planning to increase the share of its budget dedicated to integrated mobility.
So we are increasing the amount of money in integrated mobility through that grant winning. That's, we think, a great path forward. As we know, in COVID, revenues got tighter, right? People were driving less, revenues were down. So I think tapping new opportunities outside of our traditional sources is really important, and that's why we leaned heavy into that. And we will continue to look to do that.
Great. Thank you, Julie. Thank you, everyone, for being here today. In respect of time, we nailed it right on time for you, Julie. We've got a lot of questions in the chat. We'll make sure you get those, and if there's anything that needs to happen in a follow-up, we'll make sure you have those available for us. So thanks very much for being here, Julie. We want to keep everybody in place and bring on Bill Nesper from the League of American Bicyclists. So thanks, Julie, and we'll stop sharing your screen as Bill comes online to begin his presentation. Great.
Hi, everyone.
Hi, Bill.
Hi. So you can see me. I can see myself here. I can see my screen. Good. Hey, well, thanks for having me. Ready to go?
Absolutely, Bill. Take
Awesome.
it away.
Well, it's great. Yeah, it was a great presentation. Thanks for all the great work that's going on at North Carolina DOT. So I'm Bill Nesper. I'm the executive director of the League of American Bicyclists, and I really appreciate Bike Walk North Carolina inviting me to be here today to speak to all of you, to give you an update from Washington. I don't have any big news today. No, I have a lot of really good news looking to the future, and you know, I want to give you a little bit of our perspective from the national level, what we've been seeing, and how we can ride together to improve more lives and communities through bicycling. I know you've had an awesome lineup of speakers yesterday and today, so you know, and all the sessions have been really top notch. So I'm excited to those that I've missed to get and to actually see those videos. I hope, I guess, in the end, that through this, all of you will be even more inspired to act to make your community, your workplace, your business, wherever you have influence, better for biking. Biking brings people together. We all know that. It brings us here today. And we got to press on to make sure that we have a more inclusive movement for change. I think there's going to be some time at the end for questions, so I'll move quickly through this. But I like to give you some of my thoughts of biking through the pandemic too, and how we can ride together towards a better recovery. So since 1880, for those of you who don't know, the League of American Bicyclists has been the national organization of cyclists, representing cyclists and cyclist rights, promoting bicycling for transportation, recreation, better health, quality of life since 1880. And we know that the bicycle isn't just the best vehicle ever invented. Bicycling is a simple solution to many of the challenges that we face in our communities, our country, and our world. Today, the League is an organization, clubs, empowering people to transform their lives, their communities through bicycling. A core function of the League is to amplify the voices for better bicycling funding and policies from Capitol Hill. So we're in Washington, D.C. Not today, I'm in my home in Arlington, Virginia, but we're working here to make sure that your projects and programming is properly supported. So, we're united nationwide, bike advocates, educators, organizations like yours, community leaders, businesses, all working to remove the barriers to bicycling and create a truly bicycle-friendly America for everyone. And that is the League's mission. It's important to mention that a few years back, when we did our strategic planning, we added that for everyone to be clear that we're serving more than those people that just self-identify as bicyclists, as cyclists. That we're helping people who might not ever get on a bike. We hope they get on a bike, but we're here to serve all through this vision. And because we know the joy and the freedom that biking brings and its role in building better communities. We know the power of the bike, not just in making us happier, but enabling us to reduce the negative impacts on public health and in growing vibrant economies. So just a couple of things, just so if you're not familiar with the League, we are in Washington. We're working on Capitol Hill to amplify your voice, to make sure that those projects you've heard about, have the federal support that they deserve. So working hard, and we had a bill going this year, and it's looking like there was an extension, and we'll be looking at it early next year as Congress takes on a new transportation reauthorization. Every year we put on the National Bike Summit in Washington, D.C. It's in March. Actually, next year it's going to be February 28th through March 3rd. Here virtually. So look forward to that. But we've had really good results over the last 20 years. We've seen, we've quadrupled the funding for bicycling and walking in the United States over that period. We have a lot of work to do. Still, we know that bicyclists and pedestrians, are close to 20% of the fatalities on our roadways. And yet we're receiving less than 2% of the safety funding nationally. So a lot of work to be done, and obviously to be bringing us together to get that work done. Our Smart Cycling program gives people the confidence and the skills to ride through everything from quick tips and videos to our network of more than 3,500 League cycling instructors. I'm sure many in the room, I know many in the room today, myself included, who are giving people the skills and the confidence to ride. And then I know you had a session yesterday on bicycle friendly driver. We think that's really important to push this nationally, to make sure that drivers understand where bicyclists are and the rights and responsibilities of all of us on our roadways. We promote bicycling, since 1880, we've been an organization of organizations. So we've been promoting National Bike Month since the mid 1950s, and are promoting our events of our organizations and member clubs across the country. Also big events like National Bike Challenge. And then our flagship program, the League's Bicycle Friendly America program, provides the roadmap for states. This is really the way that we promote policy and programmatic action at the state and local level. So that's everything from ranking the states every year. You see that North Carolina is number 22 right now. So everybody gets a report card, and we make recommendations. So please, check out our website if you're interested in digging in this report card. But our program is broad. We have more than almost 500 bicycle-friendly communities around the country. 1,400 bicycle-friendly businesses, and 200 bicycle-friendly universities. You see your numbers there in North Carolina are really good. Actually, you have a lot of communities working on this. So I thank you. I know many of you are in the room today who are transforming your communities, your businesses, and your universities through bicycling. But we know that this is more than just giving out awards. And so this program has been really effective in thanking those of you who are actually moving the needle on these things and bringing people together. As I said, everyone gets this report card. This is very important, but the application itself is a collection of, we talk about the 5 E's. It's a collection of a menu of actions that any place can take on. We'll talk later about, what we think are the priorities right now for action. But one of the things, I think the thing that we hear time and time again about the program that makes it so effective is that it really brings agency staff from different agencies together. It brings people who are bike advocates, educators, community leaders, community organizations together to really do this assessment and then have that action plan for moving forward. So I think it's important, during this time to really to go back and really think about where we were, or where we've come in the last 8 months. It's through this vision in this lens of improvements at the local level and at the state level that I think I like to take you back to earlier in this year and to think about the last 8 months. Like if you remember back in March, when we're all adjusting to life under the pandemic, the reality of life, many of us search for silver linings, and I think we still are among all the bad news. And at first we went out there, took photos of bike-filled streets and trails, and we saw more people than ever, from families to first responders, choosing to go by bike. And this was deeply encouraging for advocates who leapt into action to make sure that bike shops were considered essential businesses. Here's a map of that, those actions during that time, and to speak out more space for biking and walking, to create online resources to help people ride safely and confidently. And cities from across the country, here in North Carolina included, saw big increases in ridership. We just heard about that. And bicycling sales caused shortages. People embrace bicycling as one of the few ways that they could still get exercise, relieve the stress of their days, safely get to where they needed to go, and be with each other, to be connected, at least in some way, at a distance. So I'm sure that many of you, like me, had many more opportunities to help neighbors with biking advice, maybe even do a couple fixes here and there. I know I did. But along with the enthusiasm for the boom, we saw great growth in ridership. It's been across the whole world, actually. But along with the enthusiasm we saw with this boom, it exposed these pre-existing cracks. So bicycling was not equally experienced across the country, as many communities lacked networks and programming to meet increased demand. As more people got on their previously neglected bikes or picked up new ones, the lack of cohesive networks of bike lanes, low-speed streets, and connected trails became glaringly obvious to many new riders, especially as car traffic began to pick up. The pandemic also quickly highlighted the health disparities and racial inequities that exist in our communities. When bicycling isn't a safe alternative to driving or public transportation, it further exacerbates systemic inequities in health and well-being of those who stand to benefit from biking the most. So those of us who experience these benefits must use this momentum of the current boom, we would say, to create lasting change. If we focus our energy on these goals, we'll emerge more connected, thriving, and sustainable communities that will contribute to our country's recovery. So I think it's important to take history into account. We've seen bicycling booms before. In fact, the League is a product of the first bicycling boom in the 1800s. We've had several subsequent, rebirths during the 20th century, thanks to organizations and clubs that kept the biking movement alive. And so, during one of the biggest booms of the 20th century was in the 1970s, and that's the last biggest boom. And why it wasn't sustained is central to Carlton Reed's excellent book and article from a few months back in Forbes magazine. If you haven't seen it, I'd say go and check it out. In part, he argues it was because the environmental movement, like why didn't this boom continue on? It was because the environmental movement prioritized other things and didn't continue to see bicycling as central to their advocacy goals. I think this is still a challenge now as we focus much of the focus for change, privileges technological innovations over common sense, dare I say, boring investments in creating low-speed streets, safe networks, 15-minute neighborhoods. I think Carlton Reid is right, though, about the main reason for the decline in the last boom, when he says that those attracted to it were not sufficiently sold on the idea of carrying on riding long-term, either recreationally or critically for Dutch-style daily transportation. I think this really gets to the heart of one of our movement's biggest challenges, which is seeing is believing. Anyone must be able to imagine a future where they can see themselves riding recreationally and for everyday trips. Their community must be, developing as a better bicycle-friendly community so that more people can experience low-stress networks and bicycle programming. Many of you here have, most of you probably have helped eureka moments happen in your neighborhood, in your business, in your communities, from rides, bicycling education classes, complete streets projects. But we need more of these in North Carolina and throughout the nation. Now that more people are on bikes, and will continue to be asking, why can't I bike there? So I think that really is our rallying cry, helping them make that connection. So our collective goal has to be to reach every neighborhood, to serve every person with this work. But the current reality is that safe, complete bicycling networks, high quality bicycling education, access to bikes and people to ride with, and other elements of top-rated bicycle-friendly communities are the exception rather than the rule, both in North Carolina and throughout the country. So we believe that everyone should be able to make the choice to bike for transportation, for well-being, and for the pure joy of it. And so we've done some, just to sort of back up our arguments over the last, years, but most recently, something that we've seen in the pandemic and that we've seen in some public research that we just did last month with Ipsos, is that the survey is that the public wants more investment in bicycling and walking, and that's across all political and racial spectrums. It's 60% of Americans, and as you see in these numbers, majorities in every category. So the people want these things. And we know right now that 28% of the US population lives in a bicycle-friendly community of any level. 11% live at silver or better. And that's important. That's an important thing to know. So 28 and 11. In North Carolina, that's 25% live in a bicycle-friendly community. 11% live in silver level, the 2 silver level bicycle-friendly communities that you have in the country. It's less than 1% of the population live in those places. And it's important because these ratings do make a difference. We know that over the last 20 years, since 2000, as that investment has been going up in better infrastructure and programming, we've seen the U.S. average of people biking for commuting go up by 39%. It's more than double that for communities that are BFCs, bicycle-friendly communities of any level, and it's almost triple that for silver or above. So there's something about the comprehensive approach to building silver level bicycle-friendly communities, and we know we have, no surprise, that most of them are at that bronze level. So we really need, in order to accomplish our goals, we really have to hit that. And so we've seen this growth in ridership. At the same time, we've also and funding. At the same time, we've also seen growth, an incredible amount of guidance that's come out from NACTO, FHW over the last 15 years. That's really giving us the permission to build the kinds of networks that we need. So I talked about the 5 E's, but I want to talk about I think what are the most important priorities right now. So that is building, of course, safe, comfortable bicycling networks. Okay. And so we have the guidance to do it. We know how to do it. We have the funding to do it. In many cases, it's at the state level, there's funding that is there that isn't being used. That is definitely the case in North Carolina, according to our bicycle-friendly states criteria. So we know how to build these things. So building for people's comfort, we know we have the matrix. We know that if a road has this speed and this volume, that it should have this kind of bike facility. So we've really been good at building across the US, like really great corridors, making it possible for people to safely and comfortably get through their communities, to the places they want to go, to the people they want to be with. And it's not just, paint and, big, infrastructure pieces. It's also neighborhood streets And it's not only happening in places like Portland and Boulder or New York or, anymore. This is Cedar Rapids. It's happening across North Carolina. It's happening in rural New Hampshire, an advisory bike lane. Building, we know how to build these things. I think, we've seen a huge amount of growth over the last 10 years in complete streets policies going in. But what we should be demanding are complete networks. And so that really is stringing those things together. We know that as people who ride our bikes, that the not knowing that you're going to be able to get from here to there comfortably. Yes, bicycling education. Yes, all these things reduce the barriers to bicycling. But we know that creating a complete network is what it's going to take to reach the largest percentage of the population, which we call the interested but concerned, and get them out riding bikes more often. And I think on that infrastructure networks piece, I can't leave out great bike parking. It's often left behind, right? And as cyclists are often, people who are riding bikes often are left behind. So putting bike parking in front of places and not putting us behind the building. So that's also been a very inexpensive thing that can really make a huge difference. Of course, you can go big, like some bicycle-friendly businesses and universities have, like with this parking facility, or simply just having bike parking. The employee of the month gets the best space in this bicycle-friendly business. So that's this is not a high-cost solution, and it really does go a long way. So that's networks. I think secondly, we have to have great bicycling education. So the league has been saying this for years. We know that bicycling education starts at meeting people where they are. So we need every community to have every child should receive bicycling education, on-bike bicycling education by high school, without a doubt. And I know many communities are doing this. This has to be something we collectively are pushing for as part of comprehensive mobility training. So we need to, biking and walking should be part of the way future drivers, but the way children grow up and know this is a traffic garden here. We're seeing these pop up around the country to teach bicycling education and traffic skills education, mobility education, if you will. And then, we need more league cycling instructors. We need more instructors in communities of color. We need more bilingual league cycling instructors. We need more people teaching bicycling education, reaching into every neighborhood and reaching every person. So we've been investing more at the league in a scholarship program, trying to make sure that underserved communities are receiving bicycling education and receiving, getting LCIs. And then also I mentioned bicycle friendly driver. We've looked and we know that we have to be promoting higher standards in driver's licensure. The league supports a graduated driver's license program. Bicycle friendly driver is part of helping create a much stronger bicycling culture. Lastly, access to bikes. So the third priority, access to bikes and people to bike with. So we know that bike shops, community bike shops, co-ops are vitally important to helping create a strong bicycling culture and helping people, really have permission to go ride. Bike shops are critically important in creating that, community events, being a real hubs for bicycling. We know that bike share and making sure that it's done in an equitable way and that it reaches every community is a vital part of connecting to transit and making more bike trips and making bike access much easier for people. And just I think simply having just bike rides. We have 850 bike clubs. Many of there are more than 20 bike clubs in North Carolina. There are many bicycle-friendly businesses. All these are providing opportunities for people to get out and ride. This is a Chamber of Commerce-led ride in St. Petersburg, Florida here. It's just like social rides. So giving people options from everything from doing the Century onto just doing, the short pub crawl, or in this case, looking at bicycle-friendly business amenities across the city. Chemical Mass, this is an example of just a social ride for kids, a really positive vision of the future that we all want to be promoting. I think it's interesting also to be focusing on these social rides, especially as we look into the future, we've been looking at some data and have seen that, recent data indicates that that Blacks, Hispanics, young adults want more biking and people to bike with, according to data from the Outdoor Foundation. The number one reason to not participate in outdoor recreation for Black Americans is quote, I don't have anyone to participate with. So 20% gave that answer, more than any other answer. So people of color were more likely to say, broadly, so including not just Blacks, but Hispanics and other people of color, were given an opportunity to answer. And they also said that they were encouraged to ride more by active riding club or an advocacy organization. And they responded more than white respondents on this, 36% to 24%. And with 41% of Hispanics agreeing that club or advocacy organization would encourage them to ride more. So I think this is really, really important that we don't miss this low-hanging fruit of creating easily accessible social rides in our communities. So in order to accomplish all this, we have to be pushing further. Speaking with one voice, I said, we're at the national level. We're trying to make bicycling better for you. We're trying to amplify your voice on Capitol Hill, but also support you at the state and local level. We have a lot of work to be done. And the only way we're going to be able to address these looming crises in public health, economic recovery, and climate change, the bike is a vehicle for these things. And I think we're only going to be able to do it together. A vision of a world-class bicycle-friendly North Carolina can only be achieved through the kind of people power that we see here today in this organization, at this event, from advocates, agency staff, decision makers, league cycling instructors, ride leaders, advocates, change makers who show up at community meetings, and empower local change. We have a responsibility collectively to be better bike friends, to share the joy and the good living that bicycling brings. So I want to inspire us all to be better advocates and asking our decision makers to really recommit to do more to build a community that makes bicycling for fun and for good health and for transportation an easy choice. So thank you for doing this however you can, pointing us towards a healthier and more sustainable future. We have the tools, as I showed you, to help a bit. I wanted to say a few things. We have the National Bike Summit coming up. I want to encourage you to do that. If you're not already a member of Bike Walk North Carolina, I think many of you are, and it came as part of being part of this event. I know I became a member, and I'm very proud to be, as I ride my bike at least every summer in North Carolina. So very, very proud to be a member. But I want to encourage you to sign up for our e-newsletter at bikeleague.org. We want to, at the very least, be able to tell you, when important things are happening at the federal level. I'm sure you want to know and be able to take action. And if I can also encourage you to become a league member, we'd love to have you riding with us. And I just want to thank you for everything you're doing already in your communities to make bicycling better and remove those barriers to cycling and improve people's lives and improve your communities. So thanks so much.
Thank you, Bill. We've had some great questions come in, and I would just like to say that we all appreciate the work that you and the league are doing on the streets and in the halls of Congress. It's great stuff. But yeah, some questions have come in. One is the league working on special education programs to teach LCIs for adaptive and disabled individuals?
Yeah, so it is on the list. We have been doing this is happening in communities. Like a lot of things that the league does, it really is bottom up and then nationalizing it, right? So the league has not, the league staff has not led on this, but we have examples of this happening in other places. So what we're going to be doing is taking that and integrating that into the program so that every LCI has that at their disposal. So yeah, thanks for bringing that up. We've had sessions on this a couple of times at the National Bike Summit recently, and I think that those have been really, really great and eye-opening. And clearly, if we're talking about for everyone, it really needs to be for everyone. So thanks for the question.
And sticking with the theme of inclusion, what studies have you done in lower income neighborhoods that are generally left out of these innovative changes? The people in these types of neighborhoods usually just want to ride safe areas like sidewalks, just to walk, let alone ride a bicycle.
Yeah, well, I mean, the studies that we've done, so we have two ways of collecting this information. First is through our bicycle friendly community program. So whenever a community applies, we create a survey that is sent out. We give it to the applicant community so that they can share. We send it out to our members so they can share. And in there, as is in the bicycle friendly community application, we ask about, is every neighborhood being reached with these programs? So that's been part of the league's EEI work, for the last 5 years, is really collecting that information. But I mean, we hear time and time again, it's like I said about networks. I mean, it is here and there, and it's really not in every neighborhood that we see bike projects. We all know the most frustrating thing is to be in a great, on a great street, in a great bike facility, and then, to see that sign, bike lane ends or something like that. That is like the most frustrating thing. And I realize that DOTs have restrictions, and they're only paving or restriping this situation. This part of this corridor. So I think really focusing on complete networks, and then the inclusive planning that you heard about yesterday from Oakland. I think really, and you're about to hear about listening to people. I'm really excited to hear this too. Listening. How do you do that planning right? I mean, we have a huge problem here in reaching. Secondly, we gather that data and we put it into our review. Secondly, we do national polls. So like the one I just mentioned, we do these every couple of years, and there is a national representative sample of each of those groups. So like I think I showed you that the majority of Americans, the majority of Hispanics, the majority of Blacks, whites, everyone. Republicans, Democrats, Independents, everyone wants to have more investment in this. Budgets are tight right now, but there's clear public support for that. And so we've seen that in the national level.
Great. Next question. What is the largest emerging threat to bicyclist safety that you see, and how is the league prioritizing addressing that?
I think it's great. I think that the biggest threat is the one that's been with us for a long time, which is prioritizing speed and congestion relief and really car-centered sort of development over people movement. So I think that it's emerging just in different ways, right? So, but we're seeing a really comprehensive approach to reducing speed limits. We know that there's some new technologies coming down that where your car actually knows what the speed limit is and goes the speed limit. There is growth in the automated vehicle realm. So one of the things the league does at the national level is like we're paying attention to that. We're calling on the National Highway Traffic Safety Administration, NHTSA. They do the new car assessment program. They tell they say whether or not cars are safe, and if the safety of our streets is important to them. We're demanding that automated vehicles see people on bikes and pedestrians of all races and ethnicities, and can react to them. So I see that as a looming threat out there. I think with the sort of we don't want to be Luddites, and we're really hopeful for automated vehicle technology, but there also is that keeping our eye on the ball really, and making sure that we're part of that future. But fast-moving cars on multi-lane arterial streets remains, urban arterials remain the most dangerous place and the least comfortable place for people riding bikes and walking. So that's a looming threat that has been there with us and continues to be there with us.
Great. And here we have a good wonky question for you. What can you tell us about changes to policy or funding that may come with a federal transportation authorization bill this spring?
Well, it's a great question. There are some new. I mean, there's new money in this. So there's the main pots of money that you're getting funding for bike lanes and trails and all that. Transportation alternatives. There's going to be a 40% increase, at least in the bill that we've been working on. In addition to that, there's more requirements on equitable planning. Of course, like climate resiliency. So there's going to be requirements on how you build things, and that they're being done in an equitable way. In addition to that, I think we're going to see next year, hopefully a commuter benefit. Hopefully, in addition to that, some breaks for people who are buying e-bikes. Tax relief. People who are maybe replacing a car with an e-bike. I don't know. Those are some exciting things that are happening. I do recommend you sign up. Anybody who's really interested in getting into the deep wonkery, your national bicycle lobbyist, Karen Whitaker, is running a webinar on federal policy on November 12th. So maybe we'll know where the election is there. And this is, we've given some time knowing that, you know, the Senate is looking like it's going to be, you know, pretty even. We don't know definitely, but, you know, give it a little bit of time. Next week, we're going to have this webinar to really look at what next year is looking like and what's going to be possible. But we'll continue to be trying to make it easier for your projects to become come to life and to help you have something to point to.
Bill, that was fantastic. Thanks very much for being here today. What an incredible session to have the state leader, the national leader visit North Carolina's state advocacy organization during this summit. I want to thank you and Julie both for your presentations today. Again, awesome presentation. Thanks very much, Bill.
Thanks so much for having me.
All right, everybody. See you again at 10:30 for the Triangle Bikeway study.